Hello all and welcome to Shatter Our Souls with Novaria. Now, you know the drill at this point in time. We are tackling the last of the game today. Now, I admit it, I missed one lap knockout prior to this, so please excuse me uh, knocking the last race out before tackling Razor. And while we're here, I'd like to talk a little bit about what happened last time, more specifically, that I was very harsh towards Need for Speed Carbon. Now, one of the viewers did call me out on that, and I want to say flat out that I understand that what I was saying was harsh. And in comparison to Need for Speed Most Wanted, I feel like Carbon did not reach the same height. This isn't me saying that it's a bad game. It is simply me saying that the two games, while similar, had enough differences that one felt better than the other. And truth be told, I have not been able to finish Need for Speed Carbon since I was about 12 years old, due to the disc being destroyed. So, having recently come across a new copy, I do intend to go through and play the game on this channel. Because if I don't enjoy it, it's not going on the channel. So, a little piece of information in that regard. Because I do like the game, and I realize that I was harsh, and that, truthfully, I want to actually continue this series into the future. It was perhaps too negative. The other side of it is that we as humanity have a tendency to latch on to the negative, not the positive. So, going through and playing the game start to finish again is going to bring a different light forward once more. So, with a grain of salt, I apologize for coming across as harsh as I did, and we will see that series show up in the future. As a spoiler warning, I guess. Anywho, with that out of the way, what do we have to look forward to today? Well, short version is Razor. The final boss battle of the entire game is today. Now, there are a couple things to note. Razor is the single best racer in the game, so far as we are as it is understood. The vehicle that he's driving is the same vehicle from the opening of the game, the BMW M3 GTR. And the BMW actually is slightly stronger than the version you get to play in the opening. Partially because booting up the game and playing right from scratch with an endgame vehicle is too much for a lot of players to handle, and so they dulled it down a little bit so that it felt faster and stronger than your starter car and left a lasting impression, but wasn't actually too difficult for the player to grasp and get a hold of and be able to win a few races and get this feeling of I'm the best and here's why. And so there are a couple things of note. The vehicle that Razor is using has incredibly high stats in two of the three stat blocks. And I have to be very specific about this. It has very high top speed and very high acceleration. However, the handling is about 2/3 of the bar. What that effectively means is that the vehicle itself is prone to sliding. Is more prone to sliding under high intensity situations. Now, depending on the driver, this can be a good thing. If the player understands how to be able to control it and use that slide to your advantage, then it's not all that bad. However, the likelihood of making a mistake in a given race at any point in time is higher just because there isn't as much reaction between the vehicle and or it isn't as fast of a reaction for the vehicle when you're turning. So that's kind of the whole spiel that we're going to be dealing with. There are 5 races in Razor's particular set of challenges, more than any other racer up to this point. So, knowing that, what do we have to look forward to? We have at least one speed trap, a drag race, at least 2 sprints, and a circuit race that I am aware of. At least that's my memory of. But let's take a moment to dive in, shall we? We have speed trap, drag, sprint, circuit, sprint, as I thought. So, we'll be challenging Razor now.
Good to see you. Been a while. Just keep running like you have, and this race is yours.
Look who came crawling back. I'm glad you're here, Sugar Plum. You brought me luck last time.
Make sure you smoke 'em and get that ride back. I'll take care of the rest.
You ready to donate another car to the Razor Fund, baby? It's go time.
Alrighty. So, the first race is, of course, the speed trap. Because of Razor's vehicle being geared almost exclusively toward high speed and acceleration, that was a calculated crash. Razor's vehicle is going to have a little bit of a struggle when it comes to cornering, but great recovery afterwards. Thus, we need to use the Lexus's superior cornering and not running into walls to our advantage. Ideally. Razor has crashed twice. He's not really doing so hot. I was expecting that he was going to stay ahead of me a lot longer than he did. Well, no time like the present to pass him, I guess. And we're made a pretty good lead already. We got about a 20-mile-an-hour lead, which is going to be... It's enough that if I make a mistake or two, it's not going to be the end of the world. Yeah, we caught up a bit on that one. The biggest issue with speed trap challenges compared to other varieties is that speed trap, as I've said in the past, has a tendency for the player in first to get ahead and stay ahead. They have the tendency to rack up these ridiculous scores that are incredibly difficult to beat. But along with it racking up these incredible scores, the first person through the final checkpoint also reduces the score of every subsequent player, making it so that even if you get to the end with a lower score, you might still win the race. Razor is absolutely struggling right now, just passing the prior speed trap. And we have about 100 mile an hour on him at this moment in time. So I think we're looking pretty good right now. Okay, very, very good. Okay, well, maybe the next race will handle something a little bit different. Ended up being about a 300 mile an hour difference when all is said and done. But we can't count our chickens yet. The drag race. Drag races, of course, are short, sweet, and to the point. They have the tendency to be harder than average races because if reaction is not ideal or not perfect, I should have totaled there. What the heck? Okay, cool. 2 down, 3 to go. Round 3 is the forest green sprint race. Overall, I think this one has a better chance, I hope. Admittedly, if this was a race or a challenge about not running into anything, I would have absolutely been smoked a long time ago. All these vehicles getting in my way. What a travesty. Anyways, no point dwelling on it, I guess. Ow, wall. Heading into the, looks like the port side area of the city. You know, I really think that a lot of these racers have not seen the movie Final Destination, because I certainly would not be driving half this fast anywhere near a semi-truck. That's not a good idea. That's a very easy way to end up getting injured or worse. Anywho, Razor's caught up. He's within about, I want to say, 200-ish feet. Looking pretty okay as far as everything goes. And I like the odds of this track. So, I kind of want to talk about what this challenge has been. This started just over a year ago in December of 2022. And the whole goal was to beat the game with only using the Lexus IS 300. Yes, I was finally corrected on that. And not only did I beat the game, or at least get to this point. I mean, let's face it, this is the finale. But every single challenge, down to every single speed trap, every single photo radar ticket, every single pursuit milestone was completed with the Lexus IS 300. And that to me speaks volumes about the design of the game. See, growing up, I started playing this game when it was 2004, so I would have been about 9. And 2005, so yeah, I was 9. And the reality of it is that this game was incredible. I loved every time that my cousins and I booted this game up with the mentality of beating it in a single sitting, not realizing just how ridiculous that sounded. And so we always had these arguments of which vehicle we should buy, which vehicle that would actually be able to beat the bosses. Let's be fair, at that point in time we struggled and we could barely beat Vic. But the reality of it is that I don't think that I would be in this position today without actually having played this game way back when. And so this game, more than many others, actually defined what it was for me to be a gamer in some capacity or another. So I want to kind of let that sink in for a moment, just how monumental and nostalgic this game actually is. But for my 9-year-old brain way back in the day, hearing that I could beat it with the Lexus of all vehicles, which I had assumed to be the single weakest car in the game, would have blown my mind. So, knowing that, okay, Final Destination, here we come. Aside from just slamming into a truck and potentially having it land on me, we're doing okay. So, as I was getting at, 9-year-old me would have been absolutely ridiculously mind blown over what is actually possible in this game. Knowing that and playing through the game, now finishing it for the second time ever. I have a respect for the game that I never had prior. So it is with I suppose, a heavy heart that I'm going to be setting this game down, probably indefinitely. And I want to thank all of you out there who have watched and kept an eye on this challenge series over the last year. I can't thank you enough. Anywho, as we're going here, Razor is holding his own at the moment, but he's about 300 to 400 feet behind. And this is going to probably become a pretty common through line for the last couple of races here. As while Razor is a good racer, the game was designed to be beaten. And the rubber band AI that I have talked about numerous times is dialed back just a little bit for the boss battles. It's something that I've noticed numerous times, that bosses were all often easier than other rivals throughout the game, with certain notable exceptions being bosses like Jules, who had the drag race when I didn't truly understand how to do a drag race in this game. So there is that to look forward to as well. Anywho, we are rounding out the end of lap 1 of the circuit race. About 2 minutes a lap, so it's not too bad as far as time goes. Okay, cool. How many times would I have destroyed this car in this challenge at this point? I think we're sitting at least 4, and that's pretty impressive by my usual count of 1, maybe 2. Had Final Destination, we had the Pillar, there was the Drag Race Slam, all of which would have totaled this car and made these races worth absolutely nothing. But then again, Razor's also slammed the GTR into a few walls, so I mean 50-50. They're both smoking and falling apart at the moment. Couple sheared bolts. Average, basic damage. It's more cosmetic than anything. Anywho, so I expected to have more to say about Razor. And I think part of the reason that I'm struggling to say much is because Razor as a final boss compared to Darius from Carbon. I've never struggled with Razor. My first time through it, I did struggle with the drag race. But aside from the drag race, Razor has not been difficult by any means. And that's kind of surprising. I was expecting him to be a little bit heavier challenge in general, let alone for the Lexus of all vehicles. Whereas Darius was far more difficult in both the basic races and the canyon duels. And note that part of it was just that I was like 10, 11 at the time when I beat the game. But part of it was because my friend, whom I beat the game with, sold my Ford GT in the final race to buy a Plymouth Hemi Cuda. Objectively the right decision, but I personally got a little frustrated with that because the Ford GT won absolutely every single race leading up to that. Yeah, small potatoes, I guess. Anyways, rounding off lap 3, we're about 4-ish minutes in, 2,000 feet ahead of Razor, and the gap is only getting larger. I believe in part the reason why Razor is as easy as he is doesn't actually come from the fact that Razor is a easy racer. More so, I believe that it comes from the fact that the handling stat is as low as it is compared to both Ronnie and Bull's vehicles, which had near maxed out stats, but also due to the fact that the BMW wasn't built by Razor. Now, this is kind of a through line for a lot of um, vehicle based racing shows and movies and gaming in general, is that if you don't know what's in your system, then you probably shouldn't be driving it. At least not racing it. So, knowing what Razor has and the fact that the vehicle itself was a pink slipped vehicle, there is a possibility in my mind that Razor never actually was able to fully figure out that car, only assumed that he could do what he could do with it. Or he could only do so much with it. Now, part of it that he could do was put a better engine in it, a more efficient engine, because he caused the original one to seize. But aside from that, theoretically, most of the parts on the BMW should be original. I say should be because I'm not enough of a vehicle guy to really know what all would be damaged if Razor did that. But theoretically, if the engine block itself was replaced, the rest should at least have some semblance of being okay. There it is. 6 minutes into the last, or in the second last race, bringing us to the final battle against Razor. And honestly, let's give Razor a nice send off. The Lexus has bested Razor in every conceivable way up to this point. And honestly, given everything else that this entire game has thrown at us, I can say with confidence that if my backlog wasn't half a mile long, I would gladly pick this game up again and try a different vehicle for a similar challenge. I think that would honestly be the best way to celebrate a game such as this, is showing off different vehicles in numerous circumstances, because the game is good, incredible, and while it is now 20 years old, it holds up better than so many modern games that it's difficult to really express how good this game has been, has held up, and how many memories of the now 20 to 30-year-old gamers have. That's neither here nor there, I suppose, but there is a lot to actually say about this. There's a lot that this game has brought forward with it. So, knowing everything that I've said, I believe that this game should enter the annals of history as a testament to video game design in 2005. Honestly, among the games of its era, this is probably one of the best looking games out there. Note that I would say that Carbon looks and feels better, especially with its vehicle design, but Need for Speed Most Wanted had so much going for it that I believe that its design helped truly define the genre of the age, or of that era. But who knows, I might be slapping it on a little bit too thick here. But what we do know, we know that Razor's been getting increasingly anxious about the situation going on in Rockport. The Blacklist racers are supposedly disappearing one by one, each of them getting incarcerated, brought into the policing system. And I suppose it is time for us to truly sit down and acknowledge what it is that's been going on behind the scenes. See, the entire game up to this point has been the player trying to get revenge on Razor for stealing the car. And getting revenge is only so much. The player, if you'd like to call him RC or whatever, ends up getting thrown in jail, but without a vehicle, they have little to stand on, and all of the charges fell through. Or did they? It is noted. Actually, you know what? Did they fall through? That's the real question, I suppose, that we have to contend with. If you've watched all of my videos up to this point, you know exactly what happened. But for those who haven't and are just dropping in because, well, why not? Then, by all means, enjoy the next cutscene.
You'll never hold on to the number one spot. Not with me on your tail. And if you want these, you're gonna have to take them.
It's over, Razor.
It ain't over until I say it's over. You and me could have had a real good thing.
Where's the other guy?
He got away.
You mean to tell me the most wanted street racer happened to get away? What about the blacklist?
Forget the blacklist. They're through.
I want every single unit after the guy.
Everyone?
Everyone!
Alrighty, so to define what happened. In the beginning, after the player gets thrown in jail,
Hey, Hotshot. Hey, thanks for helping us out. We've been able to pick up every blacklist racer thanks to you. Now, I'll take that into consideration if you give yourself up. So what's it gonna be?
as I was saying, you end up in jail specifically because you were caught street racing and you lost your vehicle. Mia, behind the scenes, made a deal with Cross, the player, aka you, for every single blacklist racer. Now, part of this is that Mia has a lot of faith in the player as a whole because nope, not spikes, rips, not spikes, not spikes. Oh my goodness. Um, she had a lot of faith in the player and the player's ability to get through whatever was actually thrown their way. The result of that is that as the game progressed, one by one, every single one of the blacklist racers has fallen and been taken in by the police. Now, about mid-game, Razor's starting to notice this. He gets a little bit freaked out because there's a narc among them. Somebody who is ratting out the blacklist racers, who they are, where their safe houses are, etc. And one by one, each of the most wanted, notorious racers in the city have been taken under custody of Cross. The police chopper just dropped down on top of another car. It's not gonna work, dude. Anyways, knowing what happened, it is imperative that it is notable that Mia and Razor are Mia, Cross, and Razor are all a little bit on the guilty side for the events that transpire throughout the game. You, the player, are effectively forced to become the most notorious racer in Rockport City on I suppose, a gamble, on a bet that Cross would be able to catch the other 15. And so, while Mia held up her end of the bargain, Cross did not. Cross decided, you know what? I am going to take in the 16th Blacklist racer. That's effectively what you, the player, are, is the Blacklist 16. Or Blacklist 0? Whichever one you would like to call it. The point being, you're the most notorious racer in Rockport by the end of the game. All bets are off, because now even Razor is in custody. The part that I don't understand about that one specific cutscene is that it looked like Ronnie and Bull were both bystanders when Razor was brought into custody. Which tells me that they weren't brought in, but Cross says that they were brought in. So I'm not sure what actually happens, or whether the cutscene itself had an oversight. That is something to note, I suppose. It's not very often that you get to catch the issues in the storyline of a racing game. Most of the time, it's pretty clean, pretty clear. Anywho, the final pursuit is unique among the pursuits in Need for Speed Most Wanted, being the single race in the entire game that pursuit that hits heat level 6. Heat level 6 is unique among the rest of them in that backup will constantly arrive. And he just ran through the gas station. Okay, backup will constantly arrive. They constantly have helicopters chasing after the player. And they keep constantly refreshing. You will never have fewer than one vehicle on you at any given time. And they are all undercover Corvettes. This makes them an incredibly hard force to beat. You can't outrace them. You can't keep them down. It is all about just surviving effectively until the time is up. And that's really the hard part about this whole circumstance is there is much more that could happen here.
It's Mia. Look, don't hang up. You can't go back to any of the safe houses. Cross knows about them. Head over to the old bridge. The location is on your map. Your car is fast enough to make the jump. It's the only way. Later.
And so, Mia shows her true colors. She, like Cross, was planning on your escape. Well, she, unlike Cross, was planning for your escape, knowing that Cross was going to do what he was going to do. And so, we reach the finale of the game. If you like what you see, have any suggestions for future content, drop a like, leave a subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Until then, I hope you all have a good one.